everybody. I'm Melissa from Meditative Astrology, and today we're going to talk about the astrology of October 12th through 18th. It's a big week for Venus as she moves into the sign of Libra, so we're going to get into all of that. Before we do, if you haven't already, I want to invite you to subscribe to the YouTube channel here. If you subscribe, you won't miss any of the videos, like these weekly videos that come out on Saturdays like this one, nor the live streamed meditations that we have Sunday nights, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. That's a live stream astrological meditation that we meet right here together on YouTube and do together. If you follow us on Facebook and Instagram, then you won't miss any of the updates that come up. We have a couple weeks where we're not going to be having any meditations. All of that stuff is posted on social media, so follow us there so that way you don't miss any of those. And that's also where the weekly intention is posted. Also astrologically guided, that comes out Friday ahead of the weekly video and ahead of the live stream meditation. So really looking for a way to give you a step-by-step process of leaning into the energies of the upcoming week and really cultivating your own personal relationships and connections with what is going on, because that is really where the magic happens. So yeah, like, follow, subscribe on all of the things, and meditativeastrology.com is the hub for everything. So thank you for giving me the moment to go ahead and say all of that. So let's go ahead and get right into the week here. If we start out on Sunday, October 12th, there's not a whole lot going on other than the moon moves into the sign of Cancer super early in the morning, and that's where it is basically all day. The action for the week starts on Monday when Venus moves into the sign of Libra. So she's moving from Virgo, which is considered to be her fall, or a place that's not very Venus-like. That's not to say that we can't get anything good out of Venus and Virgo. So everybody that has that placement, there are wonderful things. But as far as the things that Venus naturally likes to do, like pull things together or unify, those are things that are a little bit more difficult in Virgo, right? Virgo's a little bit more about compartmentalizing or separating or organizing, things like that. So, it's just not the stereotypical Venus type place. So she's moving from her fall to the place of her domicile. So she's moving to one of her home signs in the sign of Libra. So if Venus as Virgo has felt kind of restricted or felt limited or felt like you were unable to express yourself in some sort of way, even though Venus moving through that house in your chart could have been beautiful in some ways, this might feel like a little bit of an opening. This might feel like a little bit of a release, or like Venus can finally be like Venus and be, about the balance and the harmony and all of those type of things. So she's gonna be Venusian in Libra, and it's a air sign. It's a masculine air sign, right? So the air signs all have a social awareness to them. There is a level of communication and relating to others, especially in the sign of Libra. The sign of Libra has a lot to do with a social calculus of understanding other their thoughts, having some perception and awareness to other people's thoughts and ideas and the things that they might want, very much considered with fairness for all, but for all as the individual. Where I think of Aquarius, I think of for all more as like a group or as a collective type energy. It's a masculine sign, so it's assertive, it's goal-oriented, and it's intellectual like all of the air masculine signs are, but it's Venus. So she wants love, beauty, harmony, desire. She wants to relate, and she wants to create relationships. She wants fairness and understanding, right? But she's gonna do these things within a masculine air sign that is her place. So asserting the desire for balance, asserting the desire or the need for justice or for fairness or for harmony, but in logical ways. Remember, it's that air sign. Understanding all sides. So air signs can be detached, right? This can go for all three of the air signs. Air is up here, right? It's not connected to anything, and it moves. It's hard to contain. So it's a little bit detached in that way, when it's detached, it can understand other people's perspectives without getting attached to one specific one, right? So it can take something in, then it can step back, and it can take something else in, then it can step back, and can take something else and step back, kind of like that in certain ways. It's the exaltation of Saturn. So this space may be a little bit rigid, but in ways that bring forth Venus, right? So thinking of like clean black and white lines, thinking of tidying up and getting rid of things, to make space for something new to come in here, right? That could be very much like cardinal energy coming into the dark half of the year type thing. So that's Venus in the sign of Libra. As she moves into the sign of Libra, she's going to start to interact with all of the outer planets. We had the same thing happen with the other planets that have moved from Virgo into Libra, right? So we've had the sun that's went across this, we've had Mercury, we've had Mars. They've all went across this space here. So they go through in opposition to Neptune. I'm going to go ahead and put the chart up here so that way you can see it. Let's see, yeah, in this chart, Venus has moved into the sign of Libra. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and point out that as this is just like within an hour that Venus has moved into the sign of Libra, coming through Monday, October 13th. I want to point out the nice little conjunction between Jupiter and the moon in the sign of Cancer. So the moon is the ruler of Cancer, and Jupiter is exalted in the sign of Cancer. So you have the two rulers of Cancer coming together in a conjunction in the sign of Cancer, a feminine sign, as Venus is making its way into the sign of Libra. I feel like this just gives a little symbolic nod to that release, to that okay, we've come home. We've come to a space where maybe we've been going through a little bit difficult terrain, but now we can breathe again, right? So maybe Venus in Virgo was out running errands all day, and now Venus in Libra can come home and just breathe and relax, right? So just a little symbolic nod there. Anyways, these planets coming across that Libra sign boundary here is making an opposition to Neptune. You can see that in Aries in this chart. It's making a trine to Uranus in the sign of Gemini, and it's making a trine to Pluto in the sign of Aquarius. So we get a Grand Air Trine as these three planets come together. You get this activation of all three of these signs and all three of these houses within your chart, within all of our charts, right? So heightened air, heightened intellect, ideas and thoughts, communications, understandings and revelations coming through, downloads, breakthroughs, all of that mental sphere things within our own personal sphere, as well as communicating with others, communicating on a one-on-one basis, communicating to a group, communicating to a higher collective energy. All of those mental processes here are heightened this week here. And with Venus coming through here, I'm wondering about a little bit more unity maybe with these planets. Now the trines are expansive. The trine aspect within its own right are two planets that are bringing the best of what they have, and they are finding ways to work together, right? So they're amplifying each other here. But when Venus comes through, Venus likes to unify, right? She likes to coexist, and she likes to bring things together here. The sun can be very powerful, very strong as it comes through here. And Mercury may have had questions as it came across here. Mars can be a little bit more brash. Maybe there was a little bit of angst as Mars came through here, right? Especially coming into the sign of Libra, where it wasn't feeling very happy within its own right? So Venus coming through this Grand Air Trine here feels like these little contrasting moments working together rather than stimulating each other to think in different ways. And I'm thinking about contrasting because when I look at this chart, I look at the contrast of light and dark that we have going on here, right? Which is all the basis of astrology. So when we think about light and dark, we think about contrasting, and we think about the different ups and downs of life, right? Like that is what the wheel, and that is what astrology represents symbolically for us here. So Venus coming into the sign of Libra is coming just into the boundary of the dark half of the year, right? So she's stepping from the light half of the year into the dark half of the year. So she's stepping into the underworld here. Uranus is in the sign of Gemini. So it's at that sign that facilitates the handover from light gaining to light losing. So a lot like how Virgo facilitates the handover from the light half of the year into the dark half of the year, we have that where it happens actually 4 times throughout the year, right? Two of those signs actually hand over from light half to dark half, so that would be Virgo and Pisces. But you have Gemini and Sagittarius, which hand over, but they hand over dominance, right? So light has from through the sign of Aries in the sign of Taurus, in the sign of Gemini, light is gaining, light is increasing. It's increasing, and it's gaining strength to where it's overcoming the dark time of the day and the dark half of the year. So Gemini, where Uranus is that sign that gets ready to hand over from, okay, light has been gaining. We're still in the brightest half of the year, but now, as soon as we get to Cancer, that light slowly, gradually starts to lose and starts to wane just as quickly as it came into prominence and into dominance. So we have both of these planets at points where the light is shifting. The light is shifting from one control to another, right? Or one focus to another. The other part of this trine here is Pluto. Pluto is in the sign of Aquarius. It's within a fixed air sign. There's a cardinal, a mutable, and a fixed sign for each of the elemental signs. But so it's fixed within the dark half of the year, but we're looking at Pluto. We're looking at the Lord of the underworld, right? We're looking at the one that initiates us into the dark. And Pluto's stationing here at this time. So I'm wondering about, on a symbolic level, different contrasts, different parts of our lives coming together and coinciding, different thoughts, two different things that maybe weren't working together, but they need to come together somehow. Maybe it's, looking at the light and looking at the dark. Maybe it's looking at the good and the bad, the positive and the negative. Maybe it's writing down pros and cons list. I don't know. But it feels a lot like within this air trine where we have different parts of our mental capacity that are being activated all at one time, and they're interacting with each other through these three different houses within all of our birth charts. You have contrasting things. You have things that are opposite and things that are different from each other. But then Venus comes in there, and Venus wants to unify these different things. And from her sign of Libra, which is Saturn's exaltation, it feels like a very appropriate place where we come into the dark half of the year for her to say, hey, these things are different, but they can work together in some sort of way, right? So I think this is a really interesting air trine that we have coming through here right at the beginning of the week. So you're going to have this throughout the week. We're looking at it right now as the full air trine, and we're going to go ahead and break it down a little bit here too. So Venus, when Venus is trining Uranus, all of those Venusian subjects, as far as love, beauty, harmony, desire, relationships, women, children, aesthetics, values, money, all of those Venusian things are up for change. Okay, when we are interacting with Uranus, we are at a space where we can want to expand. Maybe we want to experiment. Maybe there is some sort of different information that's coming through that has us wanting to try something different or see a little bit different perspective of something. Maybe we've been trying to earn money in a certain way, but then another opportunity comes about, and we are able to shift our focus and we're able to switch over to that. Maybe there is some revolutionary conversation that you have within your relationship, whether that's a romantic relationship, a work relationship, or a business partner relationship of some kind here. That trine to Uranus can be very opening for Venus. It can feel very expansive, and coming off of that opposition to Saturn, it can feel like if Saturn was a little bit limiting, this trine to Uranus can feel like, okay, now how far can I go? How far can I expand from this box that I just busted my way through, right? Kind of like that. The opposition to Neptune here can be very romantic, very dreamy, very, very otherworldly, especially when you have these two coming together. So if Venus can represent our relationships, maybe it can represent an artistic expression and creation, something like that, then Neptune connects us to something otherworldly, something that touches us so deeply. It doesn't have to be spiritual, but it can. Neptune is that planet that it fully immerses us in whatever it touches, right? So we become intoxicated by whatever Neptune is placing within front of us here. So when you have Venus and Neptune coming together, there can be a longing for something that feels very deep, something that feels very otherworldly. It can feel very wishful and very idealistic coming through here, right? So maybe as Venus is coming through this air trine, maybe she's having some internal connections and stimulations that are feeling like, you know, I know deep within me that this is the way that I should go, or, you know, I know that this thing that is coming through here is, I can feel it deep within my soul, kind of like that, right? This can be related to our relationships. This can be related to something that we create. Again, this can be related to our values and our aesthetics and things like that. So, you know, maybe as Venus comes through the trine with Uranus and with Pluto and expands its horizons somehow, maybe Neptune allows us to let go of our inhibitions that have been holding us back in somehow, right? Maybe we can cut ties from something that has felt very heavy and very weighty, and we can kind of let that go and release that. It can have us longing for something deeper, something more, something else. It can have us feeling like this is the space where I can create something so deep from that I can feel it deep within, right? So longing for some sort of transcendental energy of some kind, right? So wanting to go from normal and mundane to extraordinary or something, right? So if you're thinking about like something that somebody's creating, like a piece of art or something, maybe they've created a certain kind of like artwork, but now they decide that there's something else that they've always wanted to try. So they go ahead and try that, and they find out that they really, really love it. Kind of like that. So Neptune and Venus can have us feeling very intoxicated by something, but that just means that our full focus is there, and that doesn't necessarily mean a bad thing, right? There's just this very deep felt connection that is here. There's also the push and pull when you have oppositions, right? So Neptune and Venus here could feel like they're pulling together and feel like we're able to create and we're able to bring these two planets together, but it could also feel like it's difficult. It could feel like there's a separation. So that's where that longing for could really feel like it's not able to be fulfilled. And then that's where it can feel a little bit heavy or a little bit weighty. I'm also wondering about our mental connections to our beliefs. So when Neptune connects us so deeply to something, our beliefs, like there's beliefs and there's convictions about that, right? Neptune in Aries can be very strong on its convictions and within its beliefs. Venus is in an air sign, right? In her own air sign. So maybe the beliefs that we've had and the convictions that we've had, maybe they are mentally stimulating a little bit more now than what they were before. Something kind of like that. Maybe we're more willing to act on our beliefs and our convictions. Something kind of like that. And then if we go ahead and roll forward into Tuesday, this is where we're going to see Venus. Let me bring this back here. All right. If we bring it back into Tuesday on the 14th, this is where we're going to see Venus complete the trine with Pluto. We're calling it a Grand Air Trine because they're all within a degree of each other. Technically, Venus comes through the trine with Uranus on Monday and then comes through the trine with Pluto on Tuesday, but she's still sitting only a degree away from Uranus. It's a Grand Air Trine. It's all happening together within a degree. So we're well within that 3-degree separation range here. This brings a deep intensity to the aspects that we have as Venus is coming into the sign of Libra, right? It adds a weightiness, especially with Pluto stationing here at this time from retrograde to direct. So a deep, intense focus on our desires and our relationships of wanting to bring balance, wanting to bring harmony, but digging deep down within that. Where is the lack? Where where is the connection? Where are things coming together well here, right? Venus went through the opposition with Saturn, might have been a little bit difficult. Now it's like she is just being blown wide open with possibilities here. However, there's probably still some things for her to explore at the same time. It's not like we explore some weighty things with Venus and Saturn, and then she comes through the sign boundary, and then she has these opening aspects that come through. It's not like what came through with Venus and Saturn is necessarily going to go away. There might still be something that has to be kind of uncovered, right? And Venus coming into the trine with Pluto is willing to dig deep. She's willing to look into the intense areas that are down deep. So looking at the subconscious mind, looking at our unconscious programmings that we all have within us, looking at maybe what is holding us back, what is not allowing you to move forward. On a positive note, Venus trining Pluto can feel very empowered. It can feel very strong, and it can feel a very deep-seated power that only feels like it can come from below or come from within. It comes up from something, right? Thinking about like a volcano that is coming up and out, and that's where the energy comes from. There is a level of intensity that comes with this. So if there's conversations that need to happen, Venus and Pluto is going to say, no, we need to not ignore the shadows, and we need to dig into those. So, you know, this air trine here, it's not all roses and it's all negativity. It's just a powerful activation of the mind coming through here in many, many different ways here for all of us. So yeah, as Venus is coming into the mix here with these planets, it's not only the diplomat, but it's also the one who cares. It's the empathetic planet, right? So even if aspects to Uranus, Pluto, and Neptune can be a lot at one time, anytime you have any planet that is coming into an aspect with all of the outer planets at one time, like that can be a lot for a lot of people, right? But you have the mediator here. You have the innovative mediator, right? Because she's coming through this Grand Air Trine for Pluto and Uranus, who can both be very unpredictable, right? Pluto and Uranus can give us explosive things. They can give us things that come out of middle of nowhere. They can both give us surprises, maybe things that we thought were taken care of and they're not quite. So we have the planet coming through here in her own sign, in the sign of Libra, that adds that social calculus to it, right? To kind of help be the mediator for all of this interaction that is going on with these other planets here. So mindfulness for sure, as always, but a very interesting start to the week for Venus coming through here. So then if we go ahead and move forward to Wednesday, we don't have any exact aspects here other than lunar aspects. So we move from Wednesday into Thursday, and we get a square between Sun and Jupiter. When we have the Sun and Jupiter coming together, especially in the square, you get questions, you get challenges related to our path with relation to our purpose, power, strength, and really just our overall ambition and our overall path coming through here, right? There can be real questions related to that. Am I on the right path? Am I going the right way? Am I evolving in the proper way? A lot of questions like that. I'm thinking about the rational versus the emotional, right? Jupiter in the sign of Cancer is in a water sign, and the Sun in the sign of Libra is in an air sign. We just talked a whole lot about Libra. So trying to get those two to work together is not always easy, right? There can be a challenge and there can be questions there. Thinking about the emotional connection to knowledge and information, to insights, Jupiter in the sign of Cancer, in that watery sign, can feel very deeply connected to different informations, different insights, different downloads that are coming in, right? What are the little insights that are coming through to you, and how have you been feeling them within you? Well, the square to the Sun looks at the logical side, and you know, our emotions don't always keep the status quo like Libra likes to give that appearance of, or really sometimes truly does like to bring that balance and to bring that cohesion, right? It's not always an appearance, but sometimes it is too. I'm thinking about maybe seeing a pathway to understanding something a little bit deeper, right? So the challenge between the Sun and Jupiter could be that we are a little too much in the status quo, right? So Jupiter needs us to feel into our emotions just a little bit more here. Yeah, and I'm thinking about just really being able to understand empathetically, right? Both of these signs are signs. We have the place of Venus, we have the place of the moon. So although Libra is a masculine sign, it's ruled by a feminine planet, and Mars, or Cancer is also ruled by a feminine planet too. It's ruled by the moon, right? So there's that feminine energy there that is empathetic. There is that receptive, understanding energy. So being able to overcome challenges while still understanding empathetically. Another way we can look at this square is as an opening square to the conjunction of the Sun and Jupiter that we had happening in June. The end of June, we had Jupiter and the Sun coming together in early Cancer. So what was seeded at the end of June, right? What started to initiate itself? What was the seeding moment in June that is now starting to be able to see the pathway of where it's going? There's still a whole lot of work left for sure. Still lots of care and attention that is needed. But you see the path. You see things starting to move forward. So think back to the end of June, middle of June, early July, and think about what was brewing there. And now where is it going? Where has it went from here, right? Yeah, so wisdoms and understandings of Jupiter impressing itself upon the Libran Sun, right? So Jupiter in the sign of Cancer is very caring, very nurturing, very understanding, but from a place that creates growth, from a place that creates a space where we can move freely from and go and create our own space, right? Libra might not necessarily leave room for everybody to create their own space. It may, but only within certain parameters, where I feel like Cancer is a little more wide open and whatnot there. So your beliefs and your motivations here, they may possibly be at odds. If you look at the Sun being our motivations and Jupiter being our beliefs here, there's a square. There may be some sort of challenge to overcome. But when we overcome the challenge, especially when it's a challenge with that includes Jupiter, there's something to learn. There's a lesson there, right? There's some sort of little deeper insight or gem that is going to come forward for us here. So this square to Jupiter here is not all bad. And I like that we have this square just ahead of the new moon that we're going to talk about next week in the sign of Libra, because it's almost like there's this little individuating crisis for whatever was seeded back in June here, or whatever it is that is going on in your life now. We had this seeding moment, and now maybe we're kind of at this, like the first quarter square of a moon was kind of like a crisis moment or an individuating movement. And then we have the new moon that's coming in the sign of Libra next week, and we'll talk more about that. But that's where it's like, if there was a seeding moment, now there's an individuating crisis, then what new can come out of that, right? What kind of new? So that's just going to kind of ping you forward into thinking about next week. So yeah, that's the square that we have coming through between Sun and Jupiter. And really that is our last major aspect for the week. We're going to follow the moon around for the rest of the week here. So Virgo Moon on Friday and on Saturday. And that will take us straight into Sunday, where we will pick up for next week's video. So thank you everybody for walking through this week for me. I hope that it has been helpful, insightful, and I hope to see you back here again next week. Like, follow, subscribe, really subscribe to the YouTube channel so that way you don't miss any weekly videos. Social media, that will show you where there's any sort of updates, things like that. So yeah, thank you everybody for spending your time with me, and I hope everybody has a great, wonderful week, and I will see you next time. Thank you and take care.